And admit it, you're afraid of clowns just as much as I am, right? Clowns are just plain terrifying.
Fun fact, the fear of clowns is called coulrophobia. Because let's face it, clowns can get away with anything. As someone once put it, a clown can even get away with murder.
Mr. FLIXTER.
Hello, world. It's Mr. FLIXTER, and I just love talking motion pictures. For this episode, I'm going to review Conversations with the Killer, the John Wayne Gacy Tapes. This review is going to be spoiler-free. So, it's a documentary series that consists of 3 different parts, and each of them are an hour long. It's available on Netflix now. I just thought I'd give a warning because due to the nature of this documentary, there's a lot of graphic depictions of sex and violence. So, you've been warned. I'm not just clowning around here. So it starts off by introducing the case of the disappearance of Robert Piest. And then from there, it goes along to find out that there's been like 5 or 6 other missing boys between the ages of like 15 to like 20 that have all gone missing, that have connections to John Wayne Gacy. And the police thought that was unusual. But when they followed up with their investigation, they didn't find any bodies. So with no bodies, there's no crime. All you have is a missing persons case. And they explained, too, that in the 70s, it was a different time. A lot of times, young teenagers used to run away from home a lot. So therefore, they'd come back, a few days later, and they wouldn't think anything of it. It was just more written off. It wasn't taken as seriously as it is today. The story takes place, it starts off in Chicago, Illinois. That's where Robert Piest disappeared. And around the area, John Wayne Gacy was known as an entrepreneur, and he was a bit of a political figure too. So he had a lot of connections. He was a pretty powerful person in that regard. However, police found out that in 1968, Gacy was charged and convicted with sodomy of a 15-year-old. So therefore, that raised a lot of eyebrows, and they were starting to follow him around, and they eventually did get a search warrant. But, like I said, they didn't really find anything that was incriminating. They found handcuffs, and they found sex toys, and they found a lot of weird things, but they didn't find any people. They didn't find anybody captive. There was no evidence that anybody was being held hostage or anything like that, so they had to leave. They couldn't charge him with anything. So in June 1970, Gacy was released from prison, and that's when he went to Chicago, where he began to build up a reputation for himself as an entrepreneur, and he became a bit of a political figure too. He's quoted in his tapes in saying that he loved to rub elbows with political figures, and he loved being the center of attention too. That's where the Pogo the Clown character was introduced, and he loved having the limelight, having the attention on him. Well, technically, there's no evidence that he's actually killed people in his clown costume. He is still, in my books, a real-life killer clown. And that's just terrifying. Terry Sullivan was the one who was leading the investigation to the disappearance of Robert Piest, and he was the one that was told the team to do a very open investigation with him. Like, the police introduced themselves. Gacy already knew that they were following him, so they didn't see the point of trying to hide anymore. So they would actually sit down in different coffee shops and have coffee with them and conversations. And Gacy would invite them into his home, and he would have long conversations with them there too. And while they're inside the house, they tried to gather as much information as they legally could. But still, there's nothing. Couldn't explain it. So the real question is, where did these boys go? They had to go somewhere. But where? So, over the course of the 3 episodes, it takes an in-depth look into the case of John Wayne Gacy. This includes actual conversations with him. They have over 60 hours of recorded footage of interviews with him and his defense attorneys and his defense team about his perspective and his point of view. And then it goes into people that knew him personally and people that knew the victims personally. And there's interviews with each of these people. It gives a pretty insightful look on what exactly happened, although the truth will never really be known because I wasn't there and you weren't there. None of us are really going to know what happened. It gives a very vivid picture of what things could have been like through all this documentation that they have. They got crime scene photos, they have all this evidence that they've collected over time, and then they have eyewitness testimonies from the cops that were all involved too, like doing the investigations. It was fascinating, in my opinion. So I know it's not the healthiest obsession, but I've always had this strange fascination with serial killers because, in my opinion, nothing is scarier than the fact that anybody can be a serial killer. Anybody you know. And in life, like they say, fact is scarier than fiction. Remember that joke that Wednesday makes in the Addams Family? It's so true. Overall, I highly recommend this documentary for those who are interested in true crime stories. And also, if you have an interest in serial killers like I do, you'll find this fascinating too. It's available on Netflix. I highly recommend Conversations with a Killer, the John Wayne Gacy Tapes. So my official grade for this is large popcorn. It's not for everyone, but if this is your kind of thing, you'll love it. But I've always had an obsession with the weird and unusual. We all go a little mad sometimes, eh? Please keep in mind, this is only my opinion. It's okay to agree with me, and it's okay to agree to disagree with me. All I ask is that you have some class about it. In case you haven't heard, I'm a film critic on HorrorBuzz.com, and I make frequent appearances on HorrorBuzz Live, their YouTube channel. So I'll make sure to put links below for that. Until next time, I'm Mr. FLIXTER, and I just love motion pictures. Have a great day.
Mr. FLIXTER.